Happy New Year and welcome to the first 2016 edition of Weather and Climate Chat with Monsoon Mike Regensberger and Dr. Michael Davis. Dr. Davis, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, do you have a good winter break or it's almost done? But
so far, yeah. I mean, we went to Ohio, where
it's where you're from.
So there was no snow out there. In fact, it was
a little depressing.
Not
at least
cold
for me.
as well. So it was pretty much a not stereotypical winter.
Right. Well, we should probably take a quick look back since the last time we recorded was pre-Christmas. So we'll just take a quick, brief look over what happened. Broke all kinds of records, of course, as you know. I don't have to tell you. Christmas Eve, checked the official highs for both Allentown and Reading. We're both at 71, and I think you and I called 72, so we were pretty close.
Yeah, I saw that we were going to be close to 70. I didn't think we'd get above that, but we certainly did.
Yeah, it was surreal. Let's just say it was surreal wrapping Christmas presents, walking outdoor to throw out, wrapping paper or whatever, and just like feeling like May.
Or you could have had Christmas dinner outside.
You could have. You really could have. It did cool down a little bit that evening. Christmas Day was a little more seasonal, but I use that very loosely because we still made it, I think, into the low 60s that day. Mm-hmm. And then the following week, we tamed down a little more. And just as New Year rolled in, it was almost like Mother Nature is paying attention to the calendar. Finally, a little more normal weather.
Yeah, we're still a little bit above average.
Still a little bit, yeah.
But it's much more winter-like.
Right.
We're having temperatures in the 30s. Even some nighttime lows getting in the single digits.
Yeah.
So it's much more what you would be expecting from winter.
Right. This past week, we actually had some days that were, dare I use the word, brutal. They're pretty brutally cold. Now, still nothing like last year or the year before, but it was getting there. I think I had one night at 9 degrees in my hometown in Schuylkill County, so it was getting a little bit more like wintertime finally.
Yeah, it's getting cold, but we're still missing that one key element.
What's that?
Snow.
Just being a smarty pants. I knew you were going to say that, but you're very true. It's kind of bizarre, being, bundling up and it being so cold. And somebody on Facebook brought up a very good point that couple nights ago when it was so bitterly cold and we made it down to like 9, 10, 11, not sure what it was here in Kutztown, probably around 12, 13. Had there been a snowpack on the ground, probably would have been much colder than that.
Yeah, anytime you get a snowpack on the ground, it's going to enhance that cooling that you're going to have overnight. So temperatures are usually going to drop very sharply when you have a snowpack on the ground, especially if you have clear skies, no wind.
Right.
I always tell my weather students that is a very key sign to go very low on the low temperature.
So we're missing that, but still we wound up going pretty low. Now, this is Friday, January 8th, and we can refer to today as today since I'm planning on airing this today and releasing it today, so we don't have to do any of that thinking about when we're recording it versus when it airs sort of thing. Yeah, I know. Yeah. This morning we woke up to not so much around Kutztown, but north of here, Hamburg area, Port Clinton, Schuylkill County, had a little bit of a surprise, and I'll admit it was a surprise. I didn't really call for it on my page, and I don't think you mentioned it either on your page.
No, I didn't.
But freezing fog. What is freezing fog?
Freezing fog is essentially the same as fog, that you might have with the little water droplets suspended in the atmosphere.
Right.
But the difference is that those water droplets are something that we call supercooled.
Okay.
And by supercooled, I mean the water is liquid below freezing. So you can have liquid water exist in a liquid state below freezing. So the temperature can be below 32 Fahrenheit, and you're going to have liquid water. And when that liquid water essentially comes in contact with any sort of obstacle, it could be a car, could be the road, could be a tree, flagpole, something like that.
Right.
That water will freeze instantly to that structure. So essentially, it's kind of a blend more between fog and freezing rain.
Right. So that caused some traffic troubles this morning. I saw some accidents and fender benders and flipped cars and stuff, and hopefully everybody's okay and there wasn't too many bad injuries. But yeah, be careful around that about that this time of year, folks. I mean, just you don't even have to have diehard precipitation falling to have some slick roads this time of year. Mm-hmm. So good advice
correct.
there. Now we're going to have a rather interesting, slightly strange weekend, but hey, it's the El Nino winter of 15-16, so it's par for the course, I guess. Tomorrow, let's back up a little bit to tonight. Far northern areas could have some freezing issues tonight, potentially.
Yeah, very far to
Yeah.
our north,
Right.
probably toward the Poconos.
Right.
There is a winter weather advisory.
I saw
in
that,
effect.
yeah.
So there is a chance for some freezing rain potentially.
Now, that's not from
or-
freezing fog. That's actually precipitation falling, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
And that's associated with what, a storm coming in?
yeah, we're going to have a low pressure kind of influencing our area, giving us a chance for some precipitation. There is a slight risk of some of that wintry precipitation coming down our way,
Okay.
but I'm not overly optimistic about it. I think that we're going to be mostly warmer. Kind of following the GFS solution. I believe they're going
Yeah,
warmer
yeah.
for tonight. And we're going to be seeing mostly rain.
Okay.
And behind that, it's going to actually have a warm front, or that front is actually going to come back up and create warmer air. And then that's going to give us a shot at breaking some record high temperatures on Sunday when we're getting into the 60s.
I saw that. I saw some low 60s possible on Sunday, but Sunday's not going to be a pretty day. The GFS has a pretty decent rainstorm on Sunday morning.
Yeah, we have a much stronger low pressure
Yeah.
that's going to be coming and affecting our area this weekend. And about 2 weeks ago, there were a lot of people that were thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be a big snowstorm for
Right.
the eastern
I
U.S.
remember that.
And I was getting some questions about that, and I said, it's still 2 weeks, a week and a half out.
Right.
Hold your horses. Let's not get carried away here. And that low looks like it's going to go further to our north, and we're going to be stuck on the warm side of the storm rather than the cold side. So we're going to be getting more in the way of rain.
And maybe that's something we can address. I mean, you and I know the answer to this, but I'd like to hear it from you, a meteorologist, because I get the same question on my weather page. Monsoon Mike, this is so depressing. I'm a snow fan, and it's 9 degrees 3 days ago, and now we have a storm coming. How can it be 60 degrees and raining? What is it, because the storm is going to our west instead of east?
Yes.
Okay.
We are here in the mid-latitudes.
Okay.
By mid-latitudes, I mean 0 degrees being the equator, 90
Right.
degrees north being the North Pole.
Okay.
About halfway down the northern hemisphere, you have 45 degrees north
Right.
latitude. We are about 40 degrees north, so we are considered the mid-latitudes.
Right.
In this type of arrangement, you have typical features that are pretty consistent throughout the entire year, known as mid-latitude cyclones,
Okay.
and they contain cold air and warm air.
Okay.
Now, as you have a low pressure moving across the country, low pressures, as dictated pretty much by the Coriolis effect, are going to be rotating counterclockwise.
Okay.
So you have if you can think about that rotational component, as a low pressure is moving, say, to the right, if you're
Right.
kind of looking at it, if you're just drawing your
Yeah.
little counterclockwise
Just pretend you're
figure
looking to the
there,
right.
that wind is coming from the south.
Okay.
So you have warmer air typically to our south, say like in Florida, the southeastern U.S. So that's what brings us our moisture, our rainfall, our warmer temperatures.
Right.
On the backside of that low, so think about the other side now.
Okay.
The winds are coming down from the north.
Okay.
So that's going to be more from Canada. You have your colder air as a result. So if you have all that moisture ahead of the storm, and then all of a sudden you start bringing colder air in, then you can get that rain to convert to snow. And then you have your heavy amounts of rain converting to snow and colder temperatures.
Gotcha. So that's how we're going to have near 60 or better.
And this whole
Yeah.
thing, incidentally, is known as, well, I should take a step back here.
It's okay.
This whole process was pretty much discovered by Carl Gustav Rosby,
Oh, okay.
the founder of modern meteorology,
Gotcha.
father of it. And he basically figured out how colder air from the North Pole and warmer air from the equator mixed in the atmosphere. And that's pretty much what's going on with these mid-latitude cyclones.
Gotcha. All right.
Also
well,
namesake of my cat.
I was just going to say who Rusby the weather cat is named after. Very good. So Sunday, what are we looking at? About an inch of rain? I saw some pretty good rains.
Yeah, probably about an inch or so in
Yeah.
some areas. And
Could be a little windy too, I saw.
yeah, you're going to have a pretty tight pressure gradient with this storm. So it's not going to be a very pleasant day out there, but it's going to be warm at least.
It'll be mild, absolutely. But that mild is short-lived because shortly on its or hot on that storm's heels is a pretty strong cold front.
Just like, as I was mentioning earlier, good segues here.
Right.
You have that colder air coming in right behind it, and
Right.
then we're going to be stuck in the colder air. And I think early next week they're looking at highs only around freezing.
Mm-hmm. Actually, all of next week looks pretty much around freezing at best. But depressing for snow lovers. Not a whole lot of precipitation with that cold air. So,
it's just going to be
either
cold.
have the cold, we either have the cold with no precipitation or precipitation and it's too warm. So
And typically, after you get these mid-latitude cyclones that come through,
right,
you have that colder air coming in from behind, which is going to be very dense, very stable air, which is associated with high-pressure systems.
Yep.
So high-pressure systems, you have a lot of substance in the atmosphere, the air sinking, and you have clear skies.
Yep.
So it's going to be cold, and you have a lot of sun, but the sun being so low in the sky, it's not going to be
do much.
heating up the surface very much. So it's a very weak sun, and temperatures don't climb.
Now, we do have to throw out there, just as a little bit of hope for snow fans, that somewhere around midweek next week, a couple models are talking about a little clipper system. What are we talking, like Tuesday night, Wednesday?
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Might see a dusting of, and this is far out, so we're not making any forecast with this here. You got to go to our pages and follow us as the day goes on. But if you're looking to finally get into that feel of a season, we might see something of some sort around there.
Yeah, I think a dusting,
Yeah.
an inch, maybe if everything comes together.
Right.
But with clipper systems, you generally don't have a lot of snowfall.
Right.
It's more colder air because these originate in the Canadian province of Alberta.
Right.
Where you have a whole lot of cold and dry air as associated with the Canadian high, which usually sits in that area.
Right.
So you just have that colder air move in.
Right.
That's pretty much all you get. Now, back in Cleveland, where I'm originally from, clipper systems generally bring a lot of lake effect snows because that cold, dry air comes over the relatively warmer Great Lakes, sucks up that moisture, then dumps it right downwind of the Great Lakes.
Is this particular clipper system going to bring any snow to Cleveland? I didn't look what Cleveland's going to get.
It probably will bring something more measurable than what we're going to get. I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere around 3 inches or so.
I have to ask you a fun question since you spent the Christmas out that way. Are the people out there depressed about this winter, or are they happy that they're getting a break this year?
I think they're generally happy about
happy?
that.
Okay.
Even if Cleveland also happens to be the second cloudiest city in the U.S.
All right. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Buffalo is number one.
Okay.
And you have all that lake effect cloud cover.
Yep.
So over the winter, there's often a joke in Cleveland that we only see the sun twice in the wintertime.
I didn't realize that. That's an interesting fact there, because everybody, when you think of cloudy, depressing cities, you right away think of Seattle or Portland. But
Seattle does get a lot of
Yeah.
cloud cover, but not to the extent as what you would find along the Great Lakes.
Interesting. One of those little known facts that you don't think about. Very good. Okay, so looking at a little bit ahead, and you and I are always responsible, and we never get into these fantasy forecasts, but some weather weenies are getting excited about some potential big storms that the GFS is showing in the future. Not even going to touch them specifically because that's just not responsible. But let me just give it a broad paintbrush. Dr. Davis, is it finally looking maybe a little more favorable for some snow in the next few weeks?
I think so.
Okay.
I think the environment is starting to look a lot more conducive for snowfall.
Okay.
I can't say exactly when.
Okay.
But I think getting shot after shot of cold air in place, even if we're going to get 60 on this weekend, we're going to have a pretty favorable atmosphere in place. We just need that moisture to come in.
Okay.
I don't know if you've been paying attention to North Atlantic Oscillation
a little
very
bit,
much,
yeah.
but that's starting to go a little negative right now, which is good for
snow fans.
Snowfall. That generally means you're going to have a blocking system in place, so you have pressure systems that are trying to move through. That gets slowed down, so you have a chance for more heavier precipitation.
Right.
The Arctic Oscillation is looking pretty favorable, too, the next couple of weeks, so you have a lot more colder air come down from where the North Pole would be. You're just missing that moisture, though.
Right. So to sum it up, little more favorable, a little more optimistic.
Yes, I'm more optimistic now about our chances of snowfall than I was, say, in December.
I know. And for the first time, when I was looking at the Climate Prediction Center, I think we did that, both of us, on our phones before Christmas, and we saw nothing but red. But for the first time in the past couple of days, I'm actually seeing some blue on our side of the country, which is...
That's very helpful for getting our snowfall.
I haven't seen any blue our side of the country for a long time, so I guess that's positive. So.
And as we were looking at the weather models, next week it could be something going on there too.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are trying to play that up, but you and I aren't so jumpy on that yet.
We'll just say that the GFS model, one of our models, has or had kind of lost it this morning a little bit, something big around Martin Luther King Day, but which wouldn't be the first time that happened because we had some Martin Luther King storms in the past, but likely it'll lose that in the coming days. But let's just say that the pattern's looking a little more optimistic for snow fans in the next weeks.
It could very well have some type of storm system moving across our area, but where exactly that goes is still up in the air. And that plays a very, very key role in winter weather forecasting is where that storm pressure system goes.
Right.
If it just 50 miles in one way can mean the difference between getting hammered by snow and just getting a dusting.
Speaking of snow, we should mention also that there's some new records that have been broken, that Philadelphia is the nearest big city that this has been affected. Latest, there's never been any snow, not even a trace of snow.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I believe the second longest now is 2002?
Right.
Something like that. And I think there was some time in the mid-90s.
Right.
Like 95, I'm going to say. I'm not positive about that.
I'm usually good with the dates.
I forget the exact dates, but we have broken the record for longest period without snow in Philadelphia, or at least measurables.
Now, there is one tricky thing. I don't know if you saw me respond on your page yesterday. 1972-73, I think, was an El Nino winter. And that was the year that Philadelphia, I think it was the only year since records were kept that Philadelphia had no measurable snow all year. But the trick with this is they had some traces of snow before now. So even that basically snowless winter of 72-73, they at least had some traces by now. This year there's not even been a trace. Nothing at all.
Yeah. And even further south down toward Atlantic City, they've had none.
Nothing.
Washington, D.C.'s had none.
Nothing.
Richmond, Virginia's had none. They should have had something by now.
Something, yeah.
Even Allentown to our north, they've just had a trace.
They at least had a trace, yeah.
But
I think Reading recorded a trace one time too, but whatever.
But they should be much higher than where
Absolutely.
they are, too.
Yeah, and I think even Scranton, I didn't look at their numbers, but I believe they're only an inch tops.
Yeah,
maybe even a three-quarters.
I don't know what they're at, but they're low for where they should be, but more than what we have.
Wow. Well, definitely a little depressing for snow fans, but potentially more optimistic in the coming weeks.
If you want snow, you can go to Erie. They've had a foot already.
I saw that. Yeah, actually, that was what was it? That storm or that lake effect stuff right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. They had a decent little event there. But
and some places in Maine have had close to 3 feet of snow already this winter. So,
but even in Maine, you got to go pretty far north.
You have to go really far north, up toward like Bangor and Caribou, and
So, wow, what a crazy year! But definitely more optimistic in the coming weeks for something, so that we don't have another 1972-73, God forbid, and go snowless in Philadelphia. That would be very depressing. But
yeah, I feel like going sledding. There should be some snow.
Yeah, to me, it just, I don't know. It just gets. I just need something to track. Besides rain. Rain's fun, but after a while, you just kind of track something else. And we should also mention, our thoughts and prayers and whatever to the folks down south. Right before Christmas, we talked about some potential tornado outbreaks, and sure enough, right before Christmas, there was some wild weather down that way too.
Yeah, Garland, Texas had a very strong tornado that passed through, and there were several fatalities associated with that, and kind of goes along the lines of that tornado outbreak. We've also seen catastrophic flooding around St. Louis and the Mississippi River Valley, where you've had a tremendous amount of water moving past the city.
Wow.
The United States Geological Survey came out to St. Louis to see how much water was actually moving past St. Louis, and they calculated roughly 4.9 million gallons per second that were moving past St. Louis just last week. And they pretty much put that into consideration with if you were somehow take all that water and put it in like a hose and start pumping it into the Louisiana Superdome
Right.
down in New Orleans, you would fill that stadium in 3 minutes.
Wow.
From the bottom all the way to the top, completely filled with water.
That's scary.
Yeah, that is
Wow.
a tremendous amount of water moving past St. Louis and the local area down there. And now areas around Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana are concerned too because all that water is coming down the Mississippi River.
Wow. 2016 is looking to be an interesting year, and it's just begun.
Yeah.
So stay with us, and we'll kind of guide you through it, I guess, right?
Yes.
So I don't even think we have to do like a topic per se, because I think we discussed so many like little side topics throughout this 20 minutes that we filled up.
And we
We're
had
pretty
to
good.
catch up on 2 weeks.
Well, we had to catch up on 2 weeks, yeah, and hopefully there's plenty more for us to talk about in the coming weeks when we next convene. Maybe we'll be talking about a snowstorm, maybe we won't. We'll see. But follow us. Just remind your listeners where we can find you on Facebook.
Dr. Michael Davis's weather forecasts.
Okay, and Monsoon Mike's Weather Headquarters on my end, and we'll see you next week, Dr. Davis.
Sounds good.
All right, see you then.